I overheard my family's true feelings when Dad forgot to hang up. They were just using me for money.
I remember the day everything changed. I was just 9 years old sitting at our kitchen table when Mom and Dad sat down with serious faces. "Alex, sweetheart," Mom said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to tell you something important." That was the day we learned about the cancer. I didn't understand what it meant then, but I knew my world was turning upside down. For the next 2 years, our home became a revolving door of doctors, relatives, and well-wishers. I watched my mother, once vibrant and full of life, slowly fade away. Dad tried to keep things normal, but nothing was normal anymore. He'd force smiles during the day, but at night I'd hear him crying in their bedroom. I'd sit outside their door wanting to go in, but not knowing what to say. When Mom passed away, I was 11. The funeral blurred into black clothes and hushed voices. Dad held my hand so tight it hurt, but I didn't mind. I thought we'd get through it together. I was wrong. A week after the funeral, Dad sat me down. "Alex, I've been talking to your grandfather," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I think it would be best if you stayed with him for a little while. Just until I can get things sorted out." "But why can't I stay here with you?" My voice sounded small. "I need some time alone to process everything, to figure out how to move forward." He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, but the gesture felt hollow. "It'll just be for a few months. Grandpa Thomas, Mom's father, picked me up the next day. He didn't say much during the drive, but I could see his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When we arrived at his modest home, he helped me carry my bags to the guest room. Over the next few months, Dad would call every few weeks. The conversations always followed the same pattern. "When can I come home, Dad? Just be patient, kiddo. Just a little longer. But I miss you." "I miss you too. But this is better for now. You understand, right?" I didn't understand. Neither did Grandpa, though he never said it outright. He'd just press his lips together whenever Dad called, his disapproval clear in the way he'd busy himself in the kitchen, banging pots and pans louder than necessary. Grandpa made sure I never felt unwanted. He cooked my favorite meals, helped with homework, and told stories about Mom when she was young. But no matter how comfortable I was at Grandpa's, it wasn't home. I kept waiting for Dad to come back, for Meadow want me again. After 6 months, Dad finally came. I was doing homework when I heard a car pull up. Through the window, I saw Dad step out of an unfamiliar red sedan. A woman I'd never seen before stayed in the driver's seat. "Alex!" Dad burst through the door, more animated than I'd seen him since Mom died. His hair was cut, his clothes new and pressed. Grandpa appeared from the living room, arms crossed. "This is unexpected, James." "Dad, Alex, I want you to meet someone special," Dad replied, practically bouncing. "Well, she's waiting in the car. She's a bit shy about coming in." He grabbed my hands. "Alex, honey, I'm getting married. Her name is Vanessa. She's absolutely wonderful, a successful attorney, and she has 2 sons about your age. You'll have brothers. Isn't that exciting?" I looked at Grandpa, whose face had turned to stone. "James?" Grandpa's voice was careful, measured. "Don't you think this is a bit sudden?" "Oh, Thomas, when you meet her you'll understand. She's perfect for us." "Alex," Dad continued, "she's going to be such a wonderful stepmother to you. And her boys, Noah and Ethan, they're 8 and 10. Their father lives across the country. We're going to be one big, happy family." I peered out the window at the woman in the car. She was staring at her phone, not even glancing toward the house. "Come on, Alex," Dad said, already gathering my things. "Let's go home. The boys are waiting to meet you." The drive home was filled with Dad's chatter about Vanessa, the wedding plans, and how perfect everything would be. When we pulled up to our house, the house Mom and Dad had bought together, 2 boys were sitting on the front steps. They looked bored, playing on their tablets. "Boys!" Dad called out, waving. "Come meet Alex." I stepped forward, trying to smile. "Hi, "We know who you are," the taller one, Noah, cut me off. His voice was sweet as honey, but his eyes were cold. "Yeah," Ethan, the younger one, chimed in. "But just so you know, this is our house now. And your dad is going to be our new dad," Noah added, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. We're going to be one big happy family, right, James? Of course, buddy. Dad beamed, completely missing the tension. 3 months later, I stood in front of a mirror in a plain blue suit, while Noah and Ethan wore matching black tuxedos. The wedding was about to start, and I could still hear their screaming from earlier. "We will not wear the same thing as him," they'd shrieked when Dad suggested matching outfits for all three of us. In the official wedding photos, I'm barely visible, thanks to Noah and Ethan strategically positioning themselves to block me out. As I stared at those photos later, I realized this wasn't going to be the family Dad had promised. Life in our blended family quickly settled into a routine. Vanessa wasn't cruel, she just acted like I was invisible. She'd come home from work, hug her sons, kiss Dad, and walk right past me as if I were a piece of furniture. Dad, desperate to prove his devotion to his new wife, showered her sons with attention while barely sparing a glance my way. The first Christmas after the wedding made it crystal clear where I stood. Noah and Ethan each got new gaming consoles and designer clothes, while I received a basic phone and some discount store sweaters. Thank God for Grandpa Thomas. He never forgot me. For my 13th birthday, he gave me a beautiful wooden watch, with Mom's initials engraved on the back. Noah spotted it on my wrist at dinner. "That's so cool," he said, eyes gleaming. "You should share it with me. That's what brothers do." When I refused, I found the watch mysteriously broken the next day. Another time, Grandpa sent me a limited edition set of model cars. I loved building them just like Mom had. A week later, I found my collection smashed and the new pieces missing. When I confronted Ethan, he just smiled. "Prove it was me," he said sweetly. "Dad, look what they did." I tried showing him the ruined models. "Alex, stop being dramatic," Dad sighed. "You probably knocked them over yourself. Stop trying to blame your brothers for everything." Then, when I turned 15, Dad dropped another bombshell. Vanessa was pregnant. The house exploded with excitement. Everyone, except me, that is. Noah and Ethan bragged about having a baby sister or brother while I sat quietly, already knowing what this would mean. The Babia girl they named Emma arrived in spring. 3 weeks after Vanessa came home from the hospital, they called a family meeting in the living room. "Now that Emma's here," Dad began, not quite meeting my eyes, "we need to make some changes to the sleeping arrangements." Vanessa cleared her throat. "We think it would be best if you moved in with Noah. Emma needs her own room." "No." The word came out before I could stop it. "I'm not sharing a room with him. This is my room. This is my mother's house." The room went silent. "What did you say?" Dad whispered. "Mom bought this house," I continued, my voice growing stronger. "She paid for it. You and your sons moved into our house, and now you want to take my room away." Vanessa's face turned red. Noah and Ethan sat with their mouths open, for once speechless. "How dare you?" Dad's voice shook. "How can you be so selfish after everything we've done for you?" Tears started rolling down his cheeks. "Vanessa has been nothing but good to you, and this is how you repay us? Good to me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "She doesn't even look at me." After that, the house became even more of a prison. Nobody spoke to me at meals. Dad and Vanessa acted like I wasn't there, and Noah and Ethan didn't even bother with their usual taunts. They just pretended I was invisible. The silence was somehow worse than their cruelty had been. After 3 days of complete silence, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up my phone and called the one person who had never let me down. When Grandpa's car pulled into the driveway, I saw Dad and Vanessa watching from the kitchen window as I walked out with my backpack. They didn't try to stop me. If anything, they looked relieved. Life at Grandpa's felt like being able to breathe again after years of holding my breath. We fell into an easy routine breakfast together every morning. Homework at the kitchen table while he worked on his crosswords. Long talks about Mom and what she was like at my age. 2 months passed quickly. Then one morning, Grandpa sat me down with his serious face on. "Alex, I need to tell you something," he said, taking my hands in his. "I've been talking to your father. He's willing to give up his parental rights, and I want to adopt you officially." I stared at him, hardly daring to believe it. "Really? Really? Really?" "It's your choice, of course, but I want you to know that this has always been your home, and I would be honored to be your legal guardian. Tears welled up in my eyes as I hugged him. Yes, please, yes. The legal process was surprisingly smooth. Dad signed the papers without hesitation. The only thing left was to get my remaining belongings from the house. When I went back, no one was home. I found all my things packed in boxes in the garage, covered in dust. My old room had been completely transformed into a nursery for Emma, painted pink with butterflies on the ceiling. I loaded my boxes into Grandpa's car without saying goodbye. They hadn't bothered to say goodbye to me, after all. High school was different now. Noah and Ethan still attended the same school, but we existed in parallel universes. We'd pass each other in the hallways without a glance, like strangers who had never shared a home. Sometimes I'd hear them laughing with their friends, talking about family vacations or weekend plans, but it was like listening to a radio station playing in another room, distant and disconnected from my reality. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make something of myself. Grandpa supported me every step of the way, helping with college applications and encouraging me to aim high. The day my acceptance letter arrived from State University, along with a partial scholarship offer, Grandpa was more excited than I'd ever seen him. "I have something to tell you," he said that evening. "I've been saving for your college fund since the day your mother died. I wanted to make sure you'd have options." The amount he had saved left me speechless. With the scholarship covering most of my tuition, we decided together to save most of the money for my future. I'd need it someday for grad school, or maybe to start my own life after college. Those first few years of college were transformative. I called Grandpa every Sunday, visited during holidays, and finally felt like I was building my own life. My father, Vanessa, and their perfect little family became distant memories, like characters in a story I'd read long ago. The call came during my final semester of senior year. "Alex," Grandpa's voice was weaker than I'd ever heard it. "The doctors found something. I started making the trip home every weekend after that." Each time, Grandpa seemed a little frailer, a little more tired, but he never lost his spirit. "Don't you dare skip any classes for me," he'd insist, even as the hospital machines beeped around him. "I didn't save all that money for your education, just for you to play nurse to an old man." When graduation day came, Grandpa was too weak to attend. The nurses helped prop him up in his hospital bed, and we set up his smartphone so he could watch the live stream. After I crossed the stage and got my diploma, I looked directly into the camera and blew him a kiss. Later, he told me he'd cried through the whole ceremony. I went straight from graduation to the hospital. For the next week, I barely left his side. We talked about everything, and nothing memories of Mom, his childhood stories, his hopes for my future. Then, one quiet morning, while I was holding his hand, he slipped away peacefully in his sleep. Planning the funeral felt surreal. I was choosing flowers and making arrangements in the same house where Grandpa and I had shared breakfast just weeks ago. Then, on the day of the service, I saw Themi father, Vanessa, Noah, Ethan, and a young girl I barely recognized as my half-sister Emma walked into the funeral home. 7 years had changed them. Noah and Ethan were now grown men, and Emma, who I'd last seen as a baby, was now a grade schooler in a small black dress. The ceremony passed in a blur. I stood alone by the casket, accepting condolences from distant relatives and Grandpa's friends. Then suddenly, Dad was there. "Alex," he said softly, his eyes red from crying. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Thomas was a wonderful man." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Listen," Dad continued, twisting his hands together nervously. "I know it's been a long time, but would you consider coming to dinner with us? All of us? We'd like to try to make things right." Looking at his face, lined now with age and grief, I felt the weight of all our unsaid words. "I'll think about it," I managed to say. A week later, after meeting with Grandpa's lawyer and learning he'd left me everything, the house, his savings, all of it, I made my decision. Maybe it was time to face the past. The house I'd grown up in looked smaller somehow, shabbier. The paint was peeling, the garden overgrown. Inside, Dad, Vanessa, Noah, Ethan, and Emma were waiting around the dining room table. The awkward silence was broken only by the clinking of silverware against plates. "So," Dad finally said, forcing brightness into his voice, "what are your plans now that you've graduated?" I took a slow sip of water before answering. "I'm staying in town, actually. Going to live in Grandpa's house." The flash of calculation in Dad's eyes was quick, but I caught it. Something about that look made me uneasy, though I couldn't say why. My degree in computer science landed me a position at a tech startup. The salary was more than I'd ever dreamed of making out of college, and with no rent to pay thanks to Grandpa's house, I was able to save a good portion of my earnings. Dad started dropping by regularly, usually with Vanessa's homemade bread or a bottle of wine. At first, our conversations were awkward, filled with long pauses and careful words, but gradually, he began opening up about their struggles. "The mortgage payment was so high this month," he'd sigh. Or, "Emma's growing so fast, she needs new clothes again." The first time I offered was almost automatic. Dad was talking about their car breaking down, and they couldn't afford repairs. "I have some extra cash," I said, pulling out $300. "Here, get it fixed." The way his face lit up made something warm stir in my chest. After that, it became a regular thing, small amounts here and there for whatever crisis they were facing that week. Then, surprisingly, Noah and Ethan started coming around too. They told me about their jobs, Noah as a bartender, Ethan working retail, and their struggles to make ends meet. It was strange hearing them talk without any trace of their old meanness. When Dad mentioned that Emma needed a computer for school, I didn't hesitate. The smile on her face when I gave it to her made all our past history seem distant and unimportant. "You're the best big brother ever," she said, hugging me. It was our first real hug. The real breakthrough came during my business trip to Chicago when Noah and Ethan asked if they could tag along. I was hesitant at first, but their excitement was contagious. "We've never been anywhere," Ethan admitted. "Dad always said we couldn't afford it." "Hey kiddo," his voice was warm, familiar. "How are you doing?" We chatted about nothing in particular, Emma's school performance, Noah's new girlfriend, the usual family gossip. Then, just as we were wrapping up, he added, "Oh, by the way, Alex, I hate to ask, but could you maybe transfer $300? The washing machine broke down." "Sure, Dad. I'll send it right now." "You're an angel, Alex. I love you so much." I was about to hang up when I realized the call hadn't ended. There was rustling on the other end, then voices growing clearer. Dad must have thought he'd pressed the end button. Did he fall for it? That was Noah's voice, followed by a laugh I hadn't heard since high school, sharp, mocking. Of course he did. Dad's voice had changed completely, dripping with contempt. He always does. Little Mr. Successful with his fancy job and his inherited house. God, I'm so tired of pretending to like him. Ethan groaned. Did you see what he was wearing at dinner last week? That awful sweater. He thinks he's so much better than us just because he went to college. They all laughed, Dad, Noah, and Ethan. Then I heard Vanessa's voice join in. "You're doing great, honey," she told Dad. "Keep it small for now. We don't want to spook him." I know, Dad replied. "We have to play it smart. Small amounts here and there. Build up his trust. Once he completely lets his guard down, then we can really start asking for more. He's loaded now, that house, his savings, his salary. We just need to make sure he spends it on us instead of himself." "It's not fair," Ethan whined. "Why should he have all that money?" "We deserve it more than he does." "Of course you do, sweetheart," Dad said. "You and Noah are twice the sons he ever was. Don't worry, we'll get what's ours. He's too stupid to see what's really going on. Always was, just like his mother." I ended the call with a single press of my finger, but their laughter kept echoing in my ears. The family I thought I'd finally found had never existed. It had all been an elaborate performance, with me playing the role of the foolish benefactor. The next morning, Dad's number flashed on my phone screen. "Alex, hey, we're having a special family dinner tonight. You'll come, won't you?" I heard the false sweetness in his voice now, the calculated warmth that I'd been too desperate to recognize before. "Sure, Dad. What time?" 7. Everyone will be there." When I arrived at the house, they were all waiting. Dad had grilled steaks, me favorite. Noah and Ethan were dressed up, playing their roles perfectly. Even Emma seemed to have been coached to be extra affectionate. "Alex," Dad rushed to hug me. "You look tired, kiddo. They keeping you busy at work?" I returned his hug mechanically, noting how he exchanged quick glances with Vanessa throughout dinner. They kept up their performance, asking about my job, laughing at each other's jokes, playing the perfect family. I watched them like I was seeing a play, noticing every forced smile, every calculated gesture. Finally, as we were finishing dessert, Dad cleared his throat. "Alex, son, we actually wanted to talk to you about something important." He reached for Vanessa's hand, their practiced move for serious conversations. "The house, well, we've had some structural issues come up. The foundation needs urgent repairs." "We've gotten estimates," Vanessa added, trying to sound motherly. "It's going to cost about $15,000. Dad leaned forward, his eyes wide and hopeful. "We hate to ask, but since you're doing so well..." I smiled, and I saw Dad's face light up with triumph. He thought he had me. "No." The word fell into the silence like a stone into still water. "What?" Dad's smile faltered. I said no. Not $15,000. Not $15. Not another cent. Noah and Ethan exchanged confused looks. Vanessa sat up straighter. "But son," Dad started. "You forgot to hang up the phone yesterday, Dad." I kept my voice calm, almost conversational. "After you asked for that $300. The color drained from his face. Noah and Ethan froze. Even Emma, who probably didn't understand what was happening, stopped eating her cake. "I heard everything," I continued. "About how tired you are of pretending to like me. About how you've been playing me for money. About how you think I'm stupid, just like my mother." I turned to Noah and Ethan. "About how you deserve my money more than I do." "We were just joking," Ethan burst out. "It wasn't serious." "Alex, sweetheart." Dad reached for my hand. I pulled it away. "You're misunderstanding." "The only thing I misunderstood was thinking you had changed." I stood up from the table. "But you know what? I should thank you. You've finally shown me who you really are, and now I can stop wasting my time trying to build a relationship with people who see me as nothing but an ATM." I walked out of that house for the last time, ignoring their calls behind me. But of course, they didn't give up easily. The calls started that night first, Dad, then Vanessa, then the brothers. Voicemails, text messages, emails saw begging forgiveness, claiming it was just a joke, that I was overreacting. When I blocked their numbers, they started showing up at my house, knocking on my door at all hours. I knew I needed a clean break. The next morning, I walked into my boss's office. "Jen, remember when you mentioned expanding the Seattle office?" 2 weeks later, I had a transfer approval in hand. I listed Grandpa's house with a realtor, and it sold quickly. The market was good, and it was in a prime location. I found a beautiful apartment in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood, with big windows and a view of the Space Needle that would have made Grandpa smile. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I think about them, Dad, Vanessa, Noah, Ethan, and little Emma. I hope Emma grows up to be different from them, but I don't regret my decision. I learned that family isn't about blood or legal documents. It's about love, real love, not the kind that comes with price tags and hidden fees.